Hi, I'm Matthew Herzberg, and this is the Myopia Mindset. Back in October of 2025, I did a supporter bonus episode with Dr. Carrie Herzberg, and we talked about Trans-Limbal Ortho-Keratology, which really piqued my interest. We covered it for a segment of that episode, and I was inspired to do a full episode about Trans-Limbal Ortho-K. And I immediately started going through the Rolodex of people I know. Who should I get on this episode? Who is like at the top of the list as far as expertise on Trans-Limbal Ortho-K? And Dr. Anith Pillai immediately came to mind. So I began putting the machinations together to put that episode into place. And then kind of a funny thing happened. Dr. Matthew Martin, who is a series regular on the Myopia Mindset, kept making these comments in some of his episodes that he had a specific case that it really just wasn't working out for him, and he decided to try to pursue a Trans-Limbal Ortho-K option. And who did he enlist to help him out? None other than Dr. Anith Pillai. So I was like, hey, let's get both of these guys onto one big episode to talk about unpacking Trans-Limbal Ortho-K, go over the cases, all of the details, and let's use the real life examples that Matthew Martin was going through with his case and see what we can get as far as a deep dive on Trans-Limbal Ortho-Keratology. This episode is very meaty, and I've decided to divide it into two parts. And part of the reason for that is I've gotten a lot of really good feedback about how some folks are finding the length of the episodes overall to be a bit intimidating, and they've been saying, hey, Matthew, can you do shorter episodes? Because that would be a lot easier for us to digest on a week-to-week basis. And I was like, well, unfortunately, I don't know if I can do shorter episodes, because when we get these conversations going, they really get going. So what I've decided to do specifically with this episode is divide it into two parts. Part one is we're going to be unpacking Trans-Limbal Ortho-K. Like I said, we're going to talk about what it is, what it's not, why it's quietly becoming a powerful tool for doctors willing to think about beyond the traditional corneal designs. And you'll hear directly from Drs. Pillai and Dr. Martin. In part two, we're going to be going into a couple of the real life cases that led to this discussion. And I think it's going to be, it's very fascinating. I kind of had to put myself on mute because as these guys started talking about these cases, I'm sitting there going, wow, it just blew my mind. All right. So part one is going to be this episode, and then next week is going to be part two. Part two is considered bonus content. That is going to come out specifically for our paid supporters. If you went to myopiamindset.com or to our Substack, myopiamindset.substack.com, and became a paid subscriber to the Myopia Mindset, then you're going to be getting part two next week as an exclusive bonus content, because that's what we do for our supporters. If you believe in everything that we're doing on the Myopia Mindset, and you're like, hey, I want to support this guy, I want to spread the word about myopia management, then our way of saying thanks is with bonus content and also a supporter exclusive episode. So next week is going to be that bonus content for supporters. So if you've ever been interested in becoming a supporter, definitely check that out. So some things I want you to pay attention to in this episode, specifically in part one, is number one, Trans-limbal does not mean scleral, and the guys will go into that. I just want to put it on your radar so when you hear these words happen in the episode, you're like, okay, brain, pay attention, because it's something that you should be focusing on. Part two is Trans-limbal can be a game changer for adult ortho-K, especially with hyperopes and high myopes. And I think that is worth the episode alone to hear Drs. Pillai and Dr. Martin talk about. And number three is this is off label. So pay attention to how Dr. Pillai and Dr. Martin talk about how to set expectations, how they select the right patients, and how to bring the patients along for the journey. I think that's a part that doesn't really get talked about at this kind of advanced level of orthokeratology. Okay. So once again, this is going to be part one. Part two, we're going to be diving into a couple of real life cases, and that's going to be for our paid supporters next week. So check that out on our Substack, myopiamindset.substack.com. Thank you so much if you've been supporting us. Thank you so much for your attention. Let's get to the episode. Hi, I'm Matthew Herzberg, and this is the Myopia Mindset. This is your weekly shot in the arm for all things motivation, inspiration, and education on your path towards success with myopia management. And boy, howdy, do we have a great episode for you today. You're going to want to get out your pen, your spiral notebook, because you are going to learn all about trans-limbal orthokeratology. This is something that has sparked my interest from our past conversations on the podcast. And joining me on the panel to discuss this topic is none other than Matthew Martin and Anith Pillai. Both of these guys are amazing optometrists, outstanding orthokeratologists, the very best pedigree that you could possibly find to talk about this subject and so much more. We'll introduce Anith Pillai first. He posts these amazing bullseye topography images on Facebook and LinkedIn. And Anith, I bring these things up on my screen and I'm like, how the heck did he do that? You know, it's like, it's amazing to me. Welcome to the podcast, man.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. You know, it's amazing what you can do with AI these days, I guess, right?
For sure. And we got our returning champion with us. You've seen him every month on the Myopia Mindset, Dr. Matthew Martin, one of the most prolific speakers at boot camp. Matthew, how have you been? Welcome back to the show.
I am completely excited to be here, and I am fantastic. I got out and got some sunshine. On Tuesday, took my 83-year-old father on his annual birthday fishing trip. He caught a nice king salmon. Everything is right in the world.
Fantastic. All right. And we're going to start with a little bit of housekeeping before we get rolling here. So Anith, we'll start with you. If anybody has any questions about whatever we talk about on this episode and they want to reach out, how can they do so?
Yeah. So easy to contact me. You can get me by email, which is Dr. Pillai at evolutionaryeyecare.com. So that's dr.pillai at evolutionaryeyecare.com. So Dr. Pillai at evolutionaryeyecare.com. I will say the most common way that doctors reach out to me now is probably through Instagram. So my Instagram handle is at AnithP23. So ANITHP23. You can also get me on Facebook and LinkedIn. That's just my name, Anith Pillai. Well, like I said, the most common way is usually by Instagram these days, and I'm all for it. But if you want to email me, great. I'd be happy to answer anything.
All right, fantastic. And Matthew Martin.
Yeah, I'm a Luddite, so I prefer email. You can email me at Auburn Optical. That's AUBURN Optical at gmail.com.
All right. And if you're enjoying this episode, don't forget to do all the things like subscribe. 5-star reviews are the number one thing that help us grow. And if you absolutely love myopia management as much as we do, please consider supporting the podcast. You can do so at myopiamindset.com. Okay, gentlemen, let's get started. Anith, I'm going to start with you. When I wanted to do this episode, you're at the very top of my list. So for the uninitiated, explain Trans-Limbal Ortho-K to us, just a brief overview and how it's different from, I guess, not standard Ortho-K, but custom designed Ortho-K.
Well, I'll just go through the different designs that Ortho-K that's available. So the traditional one, whether it's custom or not, is corneal design. So where you're fitting about 90 to 95 to sometimes 99% of HVID, of the corneal diameter. So you're still smaller than the cornea. And what translimbal is, you're going past the limbus, hence the term, right? You're getting beyond the diameter of the cornea. Now, I've seen some manufacturers, but also doctors that kind of inaccurately call this a scleral Ortho-K design. And it's not really a scleral Ortho-K design because, as we all know, if you fit scleral lenses, you're actually fitting the sclera. In these translimbal designs, I'm not fitting the sclera at all. Like the scleral shape is not that important to me. What's important to me is that I'm just going bigger than a traditional corneal design past the limbus. Now, there's some benefits to that, and we can get into that in just a second. But I think that distinction is important, that we're not fitting the sclera itself. We're just going past the limbus. We're larger than a traditional corneal design ortho.
Can I interject right here?
Yeah.
5 years ago, when I first started thinking about translimbal, I was like, oh my gosh, we never touched the limbus. What are we doing out by the limbus? This sounds ridiculous. And then when this was explained to me, and I realized that we were just building an Ortho-K lens, and Anith is going to get to this, that is on the cornea, but vaulting over that sclera, it was such a revolution for me because I just didn't realize how amazing it would be to get that kind of centration. And I was so worried about touching the limbus, but really, we're not touching the limbus. We're not touching the sclera.
Right. Let's go into the benefits thereof then. Like what are the benefits of Trans-Limbal Ortho-K as opposed to like, what we would normally think is like because Trans-Limbal seems to me like the higher end of Ortho-K. Like there's only going to be like a small number of docs who are even attempting to do it. So let's talk about the benefits and then the appeal. Let's go more into the appeal of doing Trans-Limbal Ortho-K. And Anith, I'll turn it over to you.
So I think the benefits Matthew hit on is you do get a little bit better centration. There is a benefit of comfort as well, especially if you're doing adult ortho-K cases. And Matthew can probably attest to this. If I could just see kids all day long, that would be great. Unfortunately, I have adults that come in that want, ortho-K. They see the kids go through it, or they just have, they want to get out of glasses and do LASIK. And you think it's hard to handhold a 6-year-old, handhold a 40-year-old. Even worse. So it helps in that initial comfort. It helps with centration. And when you have a bigger mass, whether it's diameter or thickness, and I don't encourage doing it thickness, I encourage you doing it mass-wise, you can manipulate more tissue. That's the advantage. Now, you're right. A lot of doctors don't venture into this, and it is completely off-label. So there's reasons not to do it, right? Because of that studies aren't there, and it's not FDA approved and all that. And you're really getting into these murky waters where you're going off of the feedback of colleagues of how you're learning about this. And shout out to some of my mentors, Dr. Ken Mahler, Dr. Julio Arroyo, that I've learned from, and then kind of tweak things along the way. And I think the biggest thing also is, I think while it get a little bit more popular, there's a manufacturer out there that's now doing designs larger diameter as well. But I would say the biggest advantage is you can have a little bit better centration. You could have certainly improved comfort in some cases, and you can manipulate tissue probably a little bit better because of.
Mm-hmm. And go ahead, Matthew.
I think Anith is underplaying this. I have fit a lot of hyperopic Ortho-K standard corneal designs. They are so much work. It is so much work to create the amount of hyperopia I need for a 55 or 60-year-old. And when I do finally get it properly powered, oftentimes I feel like it's not sitting anywhere where it's supposed to. It's sliding inferior or displacing slightly. It's like this relationship between trying to get enough power to get the job done to satisfy a +2 who's 55 or 60 years old is a lot. It's very difficult. When you go to these Trans-Limbal designs, the comfort is amazing. I don't get any complaints about the comfort. And I think the centration is like bonkers how much better they center. It is truly, I think he's under giving himself credit or the idea of the Trans-Limbal hyperopic lens credit for the centration aspect.
Right. What's interesting about that is that becomes more true even with like higher myopic cases, which not a lot of people think about, because corneal designs work so well with myopia and we're so accustomed to it. And with these very high myopes, like I just did one 2 days ago, that was came in, just didn't think there was any other option. She wanted LASIK, bad dry eye, but she wanted to get out of glasses. It was like a -9 myope, and she was an adult. And we did a Trans-Limbal design. And when I talk about that mask that I'm talking about, where you can manipulate tissue better, it's even more evident with these high myopic cases. I would argue even in the hyperopic cases, because of how a hyperopic design varies from a myopic design. The landing zones come in a little bit differently, like how everything is manipulated is a little bit differently. At that level of myopia, I would say you could probably do a +2 in a corneal design. Not every cornea is the same. But when you get into these higher myopes, well, you can still do them in corneal designs. When they're an adult case, high myope, you're just killing two birds with one stone because you get the better comfort. Plus, you can manipulate tissue a little bit better too.
Right. Yeah. And let's talk about, some of those cases because Matthew Martin, my interest in this sparked with a comment that you made because Anith had helped you on a Trans-Limbal Ortho-K case, and you were so excited you held up the notes that you had made from that consultation. So if you don't mind, fellas, I'd like to kind of try to talk about that case, essentially. And so, Matthew, why don't you start us off? What was it about this case that caused you to seek out Anith's expertise and consider that Trans-Limbal Ortho-K design?
Yeah, bluntly, it's motivation and money. From the perspective that we tend to get, or at least I tend to get, a lot of people who are in their 50s and 60s who really want to be free from glasses, have borderline, maybe low-grade dry eye, struggle with multifocal contact lenses, that type of thing. And if I have an option for fitting them in something that's going to get them to see well and not have a lens in their eye during the day, those people are very, very motivated to try the different options that are out there. Okay. And as it's stated, this is off-label. It's a complicated thing. The patient's got to be on board with you. You have to be able to go through this. But these people are quite motivated, and they are so ridiculously happy when you deliver this to them. I just recently fit a pastor, and this pastor is like, this is the best thing that's ever happened. He's a +3 in one eye and a +275 in the other, and not a lot of astigmatism, maybe -0.5, something like that. But he is so over the moon happy. It's the fact that I could get such happiness out of those people and such willingness to want to do this that motivates you to want to fit them. Does that make sense? Like, it's a whole section of our population of patients that are maybe underserved. Maybe they don't like the multifocal design, or maybe they don't like a soft contact lens because of evaporative issues. I think a big part of me reaching for this in the tool chest and asking Anith to help me is the motivation of the patient and the enthusiasm for wanting to have something that will solve this niche problem.
Yeah.
I think that's a big part of it.
I imagine this is going to, like I keep saying, this takes a higher level of understanding of orthokeratology and lens design in order to even attempt, and we're talking about a demographic that most fitters, I think, won't even touch, right? Like you had pointed out, most fitters are going to stick with kids. And when an adult comes along, a lot of them are kind of sheepish around the idea of even working with adults. We talk about the comfort level and the motivation of the patient, but we're also talking about, the fact that it's off label. So I imagine we've got to set very strict expectations because it's off label. Can, either one of you that wants to jump in about that, like, how do you prep that kind of patient because with any adult Ortho-K patient, I always say, you need to set proper expectations because adult eyes are obviously different from younger eyes. And let's start with you actually, what kind of expectations should be starting with, a patient, because this is not your typical run of the mill kind of case.
Sure. And I think I'm very different in my way of doing this in my practice than Matthew and probably most doctors. Because when you're doing off-label things, document, get forms signed, like very legal ways of doing things, right? And I was like that when I first started practicing. And I've moved away from that, probably 8 years ago. So I'm not advocating for this for other people that are listening. I think doctors should make sure they're taken care of on the legal side of it. But I'm just saying, you asked me a question, and what do I do?
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a lot of forms. I've just never believed in it. I don't have a form that says, hey, you're an adult and we're going translimbal and this is off label and you got to sign this and understand all this. Because I'm of the belief that, well, if you wanted to sue me, you're going to sue me. If you're a good enough lawyer, you're going to win. And if you like me enough, you're probably not going to sue. So I've always focused my entire business model off of patient experience. So I don't want them to go through 3 pages of documentation going through. They want to do it. They want to do it. It's all about patient selection and that patient experience. So to me, they have the same form. They have an adult form and a myopia control form. So the adult form, I don't go into the difference of translimbal design and this. It's all off label. So who cares, right? Like I don't have my patient sign a form that I'm going to do Lotamax for allergic conjunctivitis or something because it's off label. I just don't do that. I'm not going to do it with Ortho-K. They're investing a lot in me because they were probably referred to us for some reason. They heard about us online, whatever reason they got to us. I'm going to take care of them because they're the solution. The biggest thing that I do is patient selection. Like that's the number one. If there's a few things in design that are really important, we'll maybe get into that. Patient selection is number one with adult cases. And I turn away adults way more than kids. I can't remember a lot of kids that I turned away for Ortho-K. I mean, and we get the crazy cases, like I don't have a -2 myopia. I have the -6, -2, 6-year-old, unfortunately. But with adults, I do turn them away because they're coming in that, had LASIK, which doesn't make it impossible, but harder. Very severe dry eye, which is a very big no-no. And they have expectations that aren't reasonable. Like I'm 55 years old and I want to see perfect everywhere, even though I don't see perfect everywhere with my glasses. Okay, well, no, this is not going to work for you. You have too many flaws that's going to make this successful. So I am not big on the documentation side. I know most doctors are, including some of the mentors I mentioned that are. So I don't think there's a wrong way. But when you ask me what do, I make it personal. I tell them, hey, what are the realistic expectations? So I have them entrust me, and I don't make it anything about kind of the legality side.
Right. Matthew.
Interestingly enough, I fall very much in the same camp as Anith on this.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I thought you were the opposite of me.
No, a big part of it's patient selection for me. And a big part of it is, there's a really good article by Malcolm Gladwell talks about malpractice. And basically what it says is that when you look at malpractice numbers, the people that get sued most are the ones that are arrogant and condescending to their patients and don't involve patients in patient care. So my take has always been that if I'm going to do something that I'm going to do for you, I would not do anything for you I wouldn't do for my own family member. If you were my brother, I would fit my brother in these if I thought my brother could touch his eyes. He can't, which is a discussion unto itself. But my attitude has always been that same concept. And when I start out a patient, especially with Trans-Limbal hyperopic Ortho-K, I tell them we're going to go on this journey together. I'm excited. We're going to design this lens. I'm thinking it's going to be fantastic. We're going to give it a shot and see where it takes us. And then when it doesn't work or if things aren't perfect, I will pull, like today I had the one, the pastor we talked about. I had him perfect 20/20 at distance and kind of okay at near. And he's like, I'd like a little bit more reading at near. And so I worked on his case and I kind of messed it up a little bit. And I took him from being a +150 when I wanted to get to +2. And I ended up with a bullseye design. So like I created a multifocal where the center was +1/4, right? So like I really screwed up the power structure. And I pulled up the topography. I'm like, here's what I did wrong. And he was like, thanks for showing me. And I'm like, yeah, well, we're going to tweak this around, go back to the old one for right now. I'm going to get with a buddy of mine and see if I can't figure out what I did wrong. But he is totally okay with that because I am willing to show him and talk to him and involve him in the care. So I think a big part of it is having that rapport and that willingness to have a patient who wants to go on this adventure with you. I think that's a big part of it. And I think that's kind of what you're saying, right? Like you're a little bit less paperwork and a little bit more, let's do this together. Let's be successful.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's very similar to your multifocal IOL selection, right? Or your I would say even more than a multifocal contact lens selection, but I think that's the most important part. Like, are they willing to know, hey, this is not a one. You're a complicated case. It may take a few designs. And it's not going to be perfect. You have to be okay with it. You have to convince me. You have to tell me that you want to be out of glasses so bad that you're willing to try it. And when they tell me like, oh, hey, especially when it's a parent, that's the worst, because they see how good their kids did. Like, oh, wow, my baby girl did so well. I'm a -3. Why can't I do this? Like, what are your goals? Like, oh, I want to see like her. I want to be perfect. So like the adults are always going to take a lot more hand holding. They're going to be surprised by the comfort. They're going to be surprised when their kids did so well, especially when they did well in the first design and they didn't do well. So you got to make an adjustment. I have a great story about it. I had a young child that came in for myopia control. We did an Ortho-K. She was probably a higher RX than her mom, but she did fantastic. Mom sees it like, I want to get out of this. And I was like, okay, this is years ago, maybe 7 years ago. And she's like a -2 or -3, simple myo. Like, yeah, no problem. I can definitely do that. We designed a custom Ortho-K design, and the worst thing you can do in an adult, I induce a central island, right? So now they see worse. And the issue is that's easily fixed. We all know as doctors, we can fix a central island. It's an easy fix, but you know that perception. And she had to get out of it. She couldn't just deal with going 2 weeks. You know, and I was trying to explain, like, well, yeah, give me one more chance and I'll fix it, and take this month off and you'll have the rest of your life of the freedom of vision without glasses. But just couldn't get past it. So I would be very careful in your adult selection for sure.
All right, well, that's it for part 1. I hope you enjoyed that episode as much as I did making it. I hope you learned a lot. I made tons of notes, and I'm excited to share part 2 with you, which is coming up next week. In part 2, we move past theory and into the weeds, and that is going to be a supporter exclusive. If you go to myopiamindset.substack.com, you can become a paid supporter of the Myopia Mindset. It's the best way to support the podcast. If you believe in spreading the word about myopia management, if you think it's as awesome as we do, and you wish more docs knew about it, definitely check it out. myopiamindset.substack.com. For the cost of a cup of coffee each and every week, you could become a paid supporter. And I like to say, hey, if you would buy me a cup of coffee to nerd out about myopia, spread the word, make this specialty more accessible, and help those who are genuinely interested in pursuing it find it and pursue success with it, then myopiamindset.com or myopiamindset.substack.com is have you do that. All right, so for part 2, we're going to break down real translimbal cases, including a hyperopic adult patient, and we're going to walk through exactly how these lenses are designed, how they're adjusted, and sometimes how they're fixed when things go wrong. So I hope you'll join us for that. That's going to come out next week on our Substack. And until then, have a good one, and I'll see you at the next one.